Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com and Celebrity Spokesmodel for the ClassicsToday.com merchandise shop. Today, we are here with a preview of our feature on Classics Today Insider of the 10 best recordings of Pierre Boulez. This was so much fun to do. And this is in anticipation of a few things because Deutsche Grammophon is going to be releasing a big, complete DG box in the upcoming year at some point, or at least that's what I hear. And of course, Sony has already released the complete Boulez box, and that really sums up just about everything he did, except for a few recordings on Erato. And of course, there are, DVDs and some other things like that. Before, however, we get to Boulez, I want to ask all of you who have not yet subscribed to Insider to please go ahead and do so. There's a link in the description of this very video that will take you there. And beyond that, I have a very interesting tidbit of information that I got from Naxos, which is the distributor of the Maris Janssen's big box that I just sort of kind of reviewed, saying it was not terribly interesting musically and what crazy person would want it. Well, it turns out that there are a lot of people who would want it. What I am told is that sales have greatly outstripped projections, that it made sense to do because he has a big fan following in parts of Europe. In Europe, maybe generally, I don't know where in Europe, but in parts of Europe, and also in Japan. And so they've done quite well with that set. Now, this is a completely different question than the issue of artistic merit. But from a purely commercial point of view, the decision to release the disc, the projected sales, whether they're going to make money, they've done very, very well. And I'm happy. I'm happy that they've done well because, as I said before, performance standards these days are really quite high. We may want to trash the thing. We may want to say it's crazy. It makes no sense. But from a commercial point of view, it just goes to prove that we should let the professionals do their job. And if they're good at what they do, if they're really professional, they're going to do it well. And that release made sense. So no matter what I said, I'm not in the driver's seat economically, and I have no clue what I'm talking about, apparently, commercially. And I think that that's a salutary lesson for all of us. We can speculate, we jaw about it, we have fun talking about it, but at the end of the day, there is no substitute for actually having the facts before you and for being the people responsible commercially for the success of the project in question. So I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'm happy to be able to share this information with you. And I take it as a learning experience, and I hope we all will. So anyway, let's talk about Pierre Boulez for a bit, shall we? What a paradox was Pierre Boulez, was he not? Here's a guy who was a modern conductor of the old school in a way. Why? Because what were the old school conductors, like the old German conductors or the old French conductors? They did their repertoire. And that's basically all they did. They didn't have much to interest them before, and they had local careers. Boulez sort of took that model and made it an international success, which is remarkable. He deserves a tremendous amount of credit for that, because what did he do? His career on disc, not so much live, but on disc, can be summarized by, talking about a handful of composers. There's Stravinsky, there's Bartók, there's Ravel, there's Debussy, and there's the Second Viennese School. Now, he did more than that. Obviously, he did much more than that in his concert career when he was like with the New York Philharmonic and other things. He had to do a much wider range of repertoire. But essentially, he just operated in that limited sphere. And very limited it was. It was even limited by the standards of 20th century music. He was like one of those German conductors who ran around doing, a little bit of Mozart and then Beethoven through Wagner and all the German composers. And that's what they did because the rest of music didn't matter. And that was how Boulez began his career. He originally, He began his career saying things like, well, any composer who is not writing dodecaphonic music is not valid and is not legitimate and is not responsive to the needs of today. As if Pierre Boulez knows what the needs of today were. I mean, the sheer arrogance of these people, especially the academic serialist composers, was just stunning. Absolutely stunning. But what was fascinating about that position is that he parlayed it into a very, very successful career, which I do believe could only really have happened in France. In the United States, there were plenty of composers who were saying the same thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I had a music appreciation teacher from the Peabody Conservatory when I was an undergraduate at Johns Hopkins University who only used graphic notation and who maintained that no tonal music could possibly be legitimate. And we all know what happened to him, or at least I do. The answer is nothing. He's vanished without a trace. Boulez didn't. Boulez didn't because he lived in a country where administration and support for the arts was completely centralized. You know, France is fascinating that way. France has been a unified political organism since the early modern period, since the 1500s and 1600s, centrally run from Paris. And so that's where he was. And he managed to take into himself virtually the entire cultural musical budget of the country and divert it to his own ends, to Urcam, to promoting the kind of music he wanted to promote. And of course, the great irony is that at the end of the day, no matter how much government subsidy and how much government support you get, people's preferences matter, tastes matter. And the entire apparatus that Boulez stood for is dead. Dead, dead, dead. And I happen to think that that's hilarious. I really do. Because he and his fellow arrogant boobies who were pushing this stuff on people are all basically vanishing down the dustbin of musical history. And I don't feel sorry for them at all. They had marvelous careers. They got lots of money, all paid for by taxpayers who would never in a billion years want to listen to a single note that they wrote. But they were supported and subsidized anyway because there was this conception of French culture, of French national identity, of being at the forefront in the arts, in all of the arts, in architecture, in the plastic arts, in painting, and dance, and theater, and music. And, the Pompidou Center in Urcam was simply another manifestation of that. And I don't think that's good or bad. I mean, if that's a national priority in France, more power to them. They can spend the money on whatever they want to spend it on. But of course, when you think of the careers of some other composers who were not Boulez's favorites, Messiaen, for example, who Boulez did some of his stuff, but they had an uneasy relationship. You look at where most of Messiaen's major commissions came from. It was the United States. It really was. I mean, just take a look at the list. Another composer, a fabulous composer, who had no chance of a career in France while Boulez was running things, was Henri Dutilleux. Henri Dutilleux's major commissions, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, came from the United States. I mean, think about it. Metabol was the Cleveland Orchestra. Timbres Espace Mouvement was the National Symphony. It was Rostropovich. And his last work, Mystères, whatever that thing was, The Shadows of Time. I don't remember what it was called. I'm sorry, but that was the Boston Symphony. I saw the premiere. I should have known. I should remember it better. His violin concerto was an Isaac Stern commission. You find that a lot of the French non-dodecaphonic or non-Boulez crew had to make their careers outside France. And then the final irony, the most extraordinary irony, is that Boulez lived in Baden-Baden. After sucking up every nickel he could from the French government, he went and settled in Germany. He went where the money was. He went where he got the most support and had the most control. And it's a phenomenon. It's worthy of a sociological study all by itself. It really is. But, Boulez, I have to say, I'm making him out to be a bad guy. And that's not really true. He had his role as a politician. I mean, that's what he was musically. He was a politician, and he was a very deft politician. He handled himself quite well in that role. He had tremendous power. But then so did Herbert von Karajan, so do all of these big European artists. In the United States, it's quite different. In the United States, it's quite different because government and the arts don't have much to do with each other. And so artistic power doesn't translate into political power in the same way that it does in Europe, into control of vast quantities of subsidy money. It just doesn't work that way. That's why people go to Europe, where there's lots more money that you can piss away at will, doing worthless things that nobody cares about. That's the European model. But the fascinating thing is that Boulez also was a conductor of genuine gifts. He truly, truly was in the music that he cared about. And so that is what is going to be the topic of the special insider video, which will list his 10 best recordings and which will explain why I have chosen them. And I do hope if you haven't subscribed to Classics Today Insider, you will consider doing it right away, immediately, because you're just not going to want to miss this. And because of course, we've also now got a whole slew of these insider videos done. We've done Toscanini and Stokowski and Simon Rattle and Bernard Haitink. And so there's lots of stuff to watch, and there's only going to be more. So I hope you will join me on this fantastic journey of the best of everybody. At one point or another, we're going to do all of them, and it's going to be so much fun. Also, I just want to end by making another point. Some of you have asked me about the upcoming Keep On Listening Awards, COLA, if that's going to be a special insider feature. It will not. That is going to be for all and sundry, without any sort of paywall or qualifications or anything like that, because I think that I just think that's the way it should be done. I really do. And also the ALDA Awards. Oh, those are going to be so much fun. The Avoid Like Death Awards. I am looking forward to doing those after the COLA Awards. And one of you predicted that there will be many more viewers for the ALDAs than the COLAs. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me because, of course, trashing things is in some ways so much more fun. But I think I've got a list for the Keep On Listening Awards of stuff that's really going to be worth looking at. And it will be appearing before the end of the year, really in the next week or two. I don't know. I've got it all done, but I have to figure out how I want to do it. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you about those as well. But now the topic is Pierre Boulez. So do please have a look over at ClassicsToday.com, the insider area, and join me for his 10 best recordings. Thank you for listening, folks. Take care.